And we're live back on Wednesday afternoon, February 11th, 2026 in House Transportation. And a big part of our agenda this week, since you both everybody can hear it in the background, is that my understanding, I've only been in this position for my second year. I understand that at some point, maybe pre-COVID, maybe previous years, there used to be a regional planning commission kind of day at the State House, and there was a lot of interaction with regional planning commissions and multiple committees. But there's, of course, hasn't been any of those days in a while. And I have attended a number of TAC meetings at my regional planning commission, but we haven't had any representation of anybody there and in this committee. And we have also been looking at the amount of things that I'm sure you're aware of, the budget constraints of the transportation fund and the flat funding and the increased costs. And we heard testimony pretty clearly from the agency that adding projects from the TAC and from the, nobody wants to repeat that acronym, the BES. Some people know it very well. Is almost at this point, they're afraid to ask anymore because they can't promise when they were going to get done. I would like to, we want to hear from all of the different regions of the state, what's out there, what people's priorities are, what they wish that we were doing, what is working, and concerns, et cetera. So we're looking for feedback from an area that we haven't heard from previously in the committee. So that's my introduction piece. And we appreciate you coming to join us today. And we're interested in any direction you want to take us and bring it all back to transportation. It doesn't have to all be transportation, but we'll go from there. So sure. We appreciate it. Welcome in, and you can introduce yourself and take it away.
Christian Meyer, I'm the Executive Director of Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission. We're located on Main Street, above the old Walgreens. Our region comprises Washington County plus three municipalities in Orange County, Orange, Washington, and Williamstown. I think if you talk about transportation and what priorities are in our municipalities right now, like much of the state, most of our towns are managing a network of gravel roads. And flooding and storms and erosion are really big surprises from one year to the next that municipalities are being asked to plan for. And is consistently the concern we hear back. They've reached out a number of times. Everyone wants to know when the dump trucks full of money are coming to their town. We said we'd keep an eye out for them, but realistically, they're not coming. So working with our municipalities as they think about their highway networks, town highway network, and how they manage it, and to what level they're able to afford to continue managing it. Don't want to throw any numbers out, but coming out of the 2023 flooding, most of the damages in our municipalities were highway expenses. Obviously, Montpelier had a lot of inundation. 2024, Plainfield, Barre were all hit very heavily in the residential and the established areas of development. But if you look at municipalities like Middlesex down the road, it was $2 million in road damage, which is about 4 times their annual budget. So they're asking, how do we deal with that? To keep going with Middlesex, in a sense, we have a couple tools in our belt to help them. The bridge and culvert inventories we conduct throughout the region are key. Helping towns understand what they have in their road and understand their assets is a critical first step towards capital planning. We're in fairly good shape in central Vermont. I think we're on a cycle where no inventory is older than 6 years old after the summer, at least. I think we have our last 5 towns to update. Not familiar with these inventories. We go out in the field. We have interns every summer who catalog every culvert in the municipality, the diameter, the length, the state of it. Is it 50% full of sediment, or is it wide open? Is it rusting out? Does it need to be considered for replacement? And then with the municipality of Middlesex, we work with them to help address their concerns. and identified funding that would help them take the next step, to take that inventory and then look at their desktop modeling of all their culverts to identify which ones really should be prioritized for upsizing, which ones are going to be the chronic washouts going forward. So that's what we're calling our sort of enhanced bridging culvert or erosion inventory, something like that. And that project's underway. It hasn't completed, and we're excited to see where that ends up.
Sure, just a couple questions.
Mhm.
In other states, regional planning commissions are county-wide, but here in Vermont, it's been sort of broken up, mostly county, but you said you brought in some other municipalities
Yeah.
outside of Washington County.
Yeah. I can't speak for that. Luckily, there's some in this room with greater institutional knowledge than myself. We were laughing last night at our board meeting. I've been with CVRPC since 2021, and I'm officially the most senior staff. So locally, we have a good team. Most of us kind of came on 2021, 2022 for the floods. But I certainly can't speak to 1968.
States, if there are other states that do that too, and
Yeah.
how funding, does that impact funding?
I can speak a little to that. I before moving back to Vermont, I grew up down the road, but before moving back, I was working in a regional planning, our council of governments in Connecticut. We were 2 counties, and we also shared 4 municipalities that were in 2 MPOs. So there's lots of ways to cut up the pie, for sure.
And my next question, you're doing this inventory, and is it fair to say, you identify culverts that are in need, that pretty much the only avenue other than raising property taxes in the town paid for it, the town able to squirrel away some capital funds to pay for it, is the municipal grant program from the state?
For a capital improvement like that, no, I don't believe they would use the municipal planning program. We are using,
Planning municipal structures and grant, program from V-Trans.
I'm less familiar with how,
Okay.
yeah.
Right, yeah.
But as you all are aware, your municipalities are budgeting for a certain number of culvert replacements on a given year. We can help working with the road commissioners and road supervisors. We can really help them say, all right, you had 24-inch culverts that you're replacing. You probably want to replace those with 36-inch, et cetera. So as they're doing that regular capital planning, making sure they're right sizing the infrastructure that goes in.
Okay, so, yep. Do you think that these municipalities are catching up, or are they falling behind as far as maintaining and upsizing culverts, structures like that?
I don't want to give a short answer to that, because coming out of the 2023-2024 flooding, we replaced a lot of culverts.
Yeah, and it's sort of the states that, our structures, our bridges are in pretty good shape because we replaced so many that damaged.
Yeah, I would say that's the second big concern of municipalities, though, are their bridges on municipal roads, especially their shorts, less than 20 feet, for which they're not eligible for those federal funding sources. In the example of Plainfield, they lost Brook Road, which had 5 or 6 bridges along it. At least 3, if not 4 of those bridges are still not reopened. So we've been working closely with the municipality, helping them do the capital planning and make those hard decisions, how they're going to address those bridges. Are they going to do it now? Are they going to wait? What's the process for getting there? Because even the 10% match on that number of bridges, bridge is $2 million probably. So they don't have $200,000 in one year's budget, much less the budget for 8.
And that's assuming FEMA.
That's assuming.
That's, yeah.
Yeah.
They then need to have the map.
Well, it's FHWA, but yeah, in this particular road, because it's on the federal aid network, but.
Thanks.
So that's a big concern. The other benefit of these bridge and culvert inventories is post-flood. When FEMA comes in and asks, well, what are we replacing? Well, guess what? You can download that database tomorrow and have a clear spreadsheet. All right, we replaced this bridge. We know what it was in there before is a 53-foot long, 16-inch corrugated metal culvert. So it also helps with those reimbursement processes as well. So it's a piece we've managed to get all our towns. Not all our towns participated in it and wanted the inventories. In the last 5 years, we've managed to expand that to include every municipality. So
You mentioned how many towns, municipalities in your
23, sorry.
23.
I think I did. Yeah.
Can you relate to other regional planning commissions, whether they're up to date on these inventories?
I would have to look at the website. It is available, I believe, through the Baptist site. That's reported there. I know I was previously a transportation planner. I know everyone's out there doing it. I don't know where everyone else is in the process.
Representative what?
Yeah, thank you. I have a couple questions. So first of all, how do you interact with the Mad River Valley Planning District? Are they a subset of you guys? Do you work with Josh? Does he do that work for those 3 towns and you kind of do the rest?
Well, I'll speak to that. Ex officio board member on Mad River Valley Planning District. We have a very good relationship with Josh. We helped create the Mad River Planning District back in 1982 or 83 with their very clear mission of that local planning to address the impact of the ski resorts in the valley. And I think that mission for them in a sense hasn't changed. But the role of the ski resorts has, right? Where before it felt like they needed to be the gatekeeper to make sure the resorts were playing by the rules. Now it's the resorts really need them as a partner for addressing housing across the community. So there's affordability for their staff as they recruit. In that sense, they still focus very closely on those municipal needs as they relate to that recreation economy. I think I'd expand it. So our role in transportation, they'll call us up if they have a question and say, hey, could you do this? They almost act as an extension of the municipalities rather than acting as a sub-region. Trying to think of other examples. We do coordinate our work plans as best we can because we don't want to repeat the work.
So are you conducting bridge and culvert assessments in that area?
Oh, yep.
And so I think I heard you say that the inventory is all up to date within the last 6 years.
Yeah, I think the valley's definitely up to date.
So what about the Meadow Road Bridge?
Yeah, well, we have the distinction, honor of having really been there on the ground when that the realization came to be that bridge was failing.
Yeah.
2 planners were out there doing a tour with FEMA and happened to be parked right next to the bridge when a dump truck rolled across it. So watching this thing kind of hang down, immediately came back to the office and we're making calls on behalf of the municipality to V-Trans to get those next conversations happening, get an engineer out to look at it, do an emergency inspection. So that's I think a very typical role we'll play with our municipalities. They have an acute problem. We can help be their navigator through the state system.
And so just using that as a case study, so that inspection happened, I think then it was decided decrease the weight limit on the bridge. I think it may be now like only school buses can go over it in terms of like
farm trucks or something.
Yeah. And is there a plan for replacing it? And are you working with Mad River Valley Planning District on that? Or has that gone on the V-Trans list?
I don't know where that is exactly right now. I could get you that answer. I can talk to my transportation planners who are working more closely with the municipality. The short answer is once the gears get turning, it is a municipal asset, a municipal bridge that I don't know what role Mad River Valley Planning District has in that, but it is a municipal issue. So I know V-Trans in their capacity would be working with the municipality.
Yeah.
And we're kind of a bystander at that point.
Okay, and in terms of figuring out funding for big projects like that for municipalities as a regional planning district, are you connecting them with opportunities for
Absolutely.
grants and what are some of those sources that you are able to turn to?
For a bridge like that, V-Trans is going to be your best option. Looking at some other examples, there are programs like US DOT Protect program, which can help address. I think there's an economic element to it, but sorry, I'm getting my programs mixed up, so I'm probably crossing hairs.
Okay.
But absolutely, we're aware of the federal programs. We can help steer a municipality toward, usually it's a V-Trans rep who's running the program locally, to have that next conversation. And if it turns out to be a good fit, we will often play a critical role in writing that application for funding. If it's a discretionary program, like say a build grant, or I think Protect got canceled, but maybe it's back on the books again. I forget what happened there. Yeah, the federal programs all changed a bunch last summer.
And just, I'm trying to get a good sense of your purview. So it sounds like you've got interns going out and assessing culverts and are they like also making sure they're working properly?
We have several criteria we assess the culverts by, percent blockage, that kind of things. There's no hydraulic testing or anything like that.
Right, just kind of looking at it and seeing like the stuff stuck in
Yeah.
there.
You see punctured rust holes in the facility. Is it even still there?
Mhm.
Many of these assets are in the books, but have either been plowed over and are no longer used, or
And so are you then sharing that information with the municipalities? And is it their responsibility to go take a look at these 3 culverts that are stuck and not working and clean them out appropriately?
yeah, it depends. All municipalities have different levels of capacity internally, but we can sit down and try to explain the data, highlight those that are, those areas where they rightfully will want to spend additional time and consideration on. Or they might say, no, we got it from here, thanks, appreciate the data. Or they may say, can you do the next step, as we are with Middlesex, and trying to do some sort of prioritization and ranking of those assets.
I have 2 more questions, which I'm happy to hold or keep going.
On a roll.
Okay. The Mad River Valley or Route 100 Transportation Corridor Project, which is this idea to connect, to have a continuous bike and ped path from Warren all the way to Middlesex. Have you all been involved in those conversations with Misha Buckman at the Mad River Path, and Josh Schwartz has been in some of those conversations?
So we were the fiscal agent for that routing study,
The scoping study?
the scoping study, I
Yeah,
guess.
okay.
Corridor study, they called it. They had to make a new name for it
Okay.
because it was a bit of a
Okay.
different beast.
Okay,
But it's essentially a routing study, drawing a proposed line within the right of way where they thought they could bring the project forward. More recently, they were pursuing additional funding. Our board of commissioners reviewed the project for a letter of compatibility with our regional planning goals. So we're continuing to coordinate as that project advances. Yeah.
okay. And I think that I know they were looking for grants from AOT. I don't know if there were others outside of there
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
that you can. And again, do you have sources for suggesting other places to look for funding for those types of projects?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that project's more somewhat limited because it's a recreational asset and active transportation commuting asset. So
It also
you're
could be a commuting asset.
exactly
Yeah,
by commuting certainly along the valley. It's actually fairly flat. You're in a
for the valley.
yeah, you're in a river valley, so it's not, as long as you're not going up
Mhm.
the valley walls. But there's the bike. They're essentially 2 cutoffs from the federal surface transportation block grant program. One VTrans manages as the bike and ped program, one half VTrans manages as the transportation alternative set aside program. So yes, we've helped them write applications where necessary.
But ultimately, they're all coming back to V-Trans.
VTrans is it's the federal
source.
pass through.
Yeah, yeah.
The application goes there. Yes. I mean, they can go to USDOT direct again, something like a Protect grant possibly would.
And then this is fairly unrelated to my last question. So are you working with like road foremen, like highway, not highway, but the local road crews in terms of their plant, how they are using salt, for example? And we've had some conversations about, AOT has a program for which they are feeling pretty good about in terms of using less salt. And I question, really down at the local level, like are road crews well informed about kind of some of the cutting edge ways to apply salt on the road, particularly when you're in a watershed like the Magdeburg Valley?
So we do post somewhere between quarterly and twice a year. It's either called, the road supervisors or road foremen's meetings. And we generally will have an area of conversation or discussion like road erosion inventories or some of the programs that are available to them. I'm unaware if we've had a recent one that really focused in on salt application.
And just to follow up on that, there is a group in the Adirondacks, the Lake George Association, which works to protect the water quality of that lake, which is considered to be one of the cleanest in the world. And that organization hosts a salt summit every fall. And they've had some incredible results from that summit, and they bring together the plow drivers, the road foremen, the private contractors who are doing salt, doing management of parking lots and so forth. And they brought them all together and really educated that group. And they've seen significant reductions in salt use and the cost of salt. So it's something I kind of continue to bring up because I think there's something to learn from that group.
Yeah, I think there's opportunities for salt, but also gravel as well, because that runs off and ends up ultimately in our rivers.
Thank you.
Representative Paul.
Yeah, thanks for helping inform us. When you do the culvert inventory, do you also provide the hydrologic, like this culvert's, 2 feet, it really should be 3 feet based on the latest science or methods of sizing?
We do not as part of that base inventory.
Is there an indication at all that, so you provide, it's partially blocked, condition, and here is the size, because they may not even really know. But do you provide anything at all that says, and it's probably undersized?
No, not as part of that base fund. Again, this project we're undergoing in Middlesex, which is being funded with municipal planning grant funds, takes that next step. We do some tabletop modeling, and I think the software can assess the need or the capacity up to 36-inch culverts. It's not for everything, but it can look at most. You're looking at 85% of them at that.
I think our town in Heinsberg
Has done that too.
Yeah, they had the inventory, and then I think they've had some sizing. And I'd like to point out, they identified culverts that were undersized, that they applied for grants for 3 years in a row from the state, never got them because they had previously gotten a grant for other things. And of course, those culverts were on in the big storm we had in Heinsberg. Are you involved at all in the VTrans awarding structures or bridge grants when they award to municipalities? Is any of the planning organizations involved in the evaluation and awarding of those, do you know? Like,
Yeah,
this one really this one is, more critical than this one, let's say.
under the project prioritization process, EPSV2, there are the engineering inputs, and then there is the planning inputs, some of which VTrans fills in themselves. Others are filled in by the regional planning commissions through their tags. So when that program is running, when we're expanding our portfolio of needs, yes, we are involved in that prioritization process.
Representative Berg?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about this. I heard from my Chris Campany, who's
Mhm.
the local
Okay.
uh, regional planner, about current FEMA guidance that are asking for a lot of personal information about board members,
Mhm.
regional planning commissions, and said, that's be considered invasion of privacy. They don't have no real role in doing the actual work and, certainly acceptable for staff. But anyway, just wondered if you've been,
I'm aware of this, and it's all tied to that emergency planning,
yeah,
emergency management
been
block.
on hold,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we're waiting to see.
yeah. So, and he wasn't sure if it was part of this state lawsuit.
Hmm.
Certainly.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, Chris is always a great resource.
Yeah.
Nothing more to add.
So, Christian, in the last 2 or 3 minutes here, what would you want state, I guess, at least as far as the budget and policy of the agency, or what you'd like us to know, or what you'd like to ask from us, but also what might be the major projects in your area that you'd want us to be aware of, and anything that that we should hear from you or you need from us. It would make your life better here in Washington County and 3 Orange County municipalities.
Yeah, in the Central Vermont planning area. I don't think we have one single ask. I think there's a lot of need, obviously. We've talked about bridges. The other area we always hear about is active transportation investments. So sidewalks, really basic stuff. Like much of Vermont, our villages are bisected by state routes. We regularly hear, how do we control speeds on these roads? How do we make these places people want to live and develop and put their housing in the denser clusters that we are proposing under most of our planning work. Transportation is a land use issue ultimately. No, I don't think there's any key areas where we're not getting the support cooperation we need out of VTrans, at least in Central Vermont. One example is it's been slow, but we've managed to stand up a demonstration program. Demonstration projects are, you go in with movable bollards, you put them up for 2 months, you measure the traffic speed before, the volumes, et cetera. You measure them after, you do some surveys, and now a town has some real concrete information about what adding a sidewalk will really do for their community before they make the investments. And it's been really hard to get a set of design guidelines that work with the VTrans design guidelines. Can they be movable bollards or do they have to be fixed bollards? What kind of paint do we use? Et cetera, et cetera. So it's a challenge, but they come to the table open-minded, and we're moving forward. So it just takes work.
Last piece. Thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate that. Now you guess you know who we are, and we know a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, don't hesitate.
Interaction will be more.
Any issues? I had 2 questions. I only wrote down the SALT application one. Someone else asked a question. I promised to get back to that on. It may come to
It's on YouTube later.
There we go. Yes.
You did answer the question, what, from the state transportation, what would you like to see increased, I guess, and you told us that.
Yeah, I mean, we have our needs.
Yes,
Okay.
the bridges and, I think the bike pad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are key covenant requests we receive at the regional level.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much. Very good. Trying to get some feedback from an area that we don't always hear from. Welcome to committee.
Thank you. We have a brief but 10-minute overview of what
Excellent.
we're working on in our region, if that works for you.
It does. We've had a couple different approaches from that, and we've also had a presentation earlier from Addison County, so we want you to present away and let us know what you want us to know about you.
So thanks for having us. I'm Catherine Dimitrick. I'm Executive Director of Northwest Regional Planning Commission.
I'm Kyle Brander. I'm the transportation planner at Northwest Regional Plan.
And we really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Before we launch in, just want to thank you for your attention last year to the issues of municipal payback and the municipal grants program, and just asking the agency to take a relook at that. We really appreciated that responsiveness.
I'm not sure that's been solved yet.
No, no, but you made the question be asked, and that was a huge step in the right direction. So just a little bit about the Northwest region. Our transportation system, our roadways are the main part of our transportation system. The overwhelming majority of our road miles, like most regions of the state, are local roads. So over half of our local roads are class 3 town highways. And the remaining portions of town highways are class 2 and class 4. And we only have a very small sliver of class 1 town highways. It's just 12 miles. So it's a very small amount of our regional road network. So as you can see, when we talk about the work that we do, it's going to skew more toward local assistance, because that is where the majority of the issues arise in our region, and making sure we provide that local assistance in coordination and cooperation with VTrans.
So what comprises the Northwest region?
Oh,
Grand
actually, it's
Isle?
Franklin
Okay.
and Grand, not just Franklin, but Franklin and Grand Isle counties
Okay.
included in our region. And we actually follow county boundaries.
Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So we may be, well, we're not totally unique, but we are not, we are unusual.
Thank you.
Representative Couch had a question.
Was this shared with us? It's not on our website.
It's not yet, but
Okay.
I will. Yeah, I'll email when we're done. I was having some trouble with the PDF until right before now, so. So one of the things we do at NRPC and also all of the regional planning commissions is we really, in the absence of county government, regional planning commissions serve in that function as much as we can to assist our municipalities in the state. And especially in the era of diminishing resources, the interdisciplinary approach that we take to transportation is beneficial for the state as a whole, because whenever we can, we leverage funding sources in other areas of our work to help build and support the transportation networks that make our communities successful. Overall, in our transportation planning program, every single one of our towns receives some form of assistance, and some of the examples that we'll talk about in the next few slides. But we're all doing it toward the goal of having successful communities, successful community development, successful economic development, enabling people to get to work, to get to healthcare, and really have successful lives. So a lot of the work that we are doing in transportation actually supports economic development. And in the particular area we're going to highlight is the work that we do on rail trails. Franklin and Grand Isle counties we have two really big ones that actually intersect. The Missisquoi Valley Rail Trail is 26 miles, the 90-mile Loyal Valley Rail Trail travels through our region. They intersect in Sheldon Junction, actually, because it was an old railroad junction, so it makes sense. And the work that we've done is longstanding. We supported the Missisquoi Valley Rail Trail for decades prior to anybody at the state paying attention to rail trails. And a lot of the work that we built is foundational in helping to serve as examples for what's happening in the Loyal Valley. And Kyle's going to talk about some of those details.
So We have a wonderfully dedicated staff member, Amy Adams, who is very passionate about the rail trail. She was very passionate about MVRT, and that is growing to LVRT. She's really fostered some of the work that's been done at NRPC over the years. This year, there's a really big focus on the Trail Friendly Business Program, and I just brought a couple of little things, but from the economic development perspective, trail friendly businesses get a decal that they can place in their windows. There are, on a further slide, there's a brochure that's being recreated that was made years ago this is what the new one will look like. For Missisquoi Valley Rail Trail, it's being expanded to Lamoille Valley Rail Trail Friendly Business Program. But really getting the opportunity for folks that are using the trail to into some of those local businesses for something as simple as a restroom, but as needed as a meal. We have some applications this year for some Airbnbs and some lodging to be included in this as well. So it's a real gem. Some of the other work that we've done is we work really closely with the Rail Trail Council. In our region, we've combined them. So the Lamoille Valley and Missisquoi Valley councils are one who hear a lot about what's happening on the trails. They are currently reviewing a new wayfinding signage package that's being put together, a management plan for how the council works with VTrans and regional planning to make sure that the trail stays successful. We also do a lot of green up on the trail, which is really nice. You see these dedicated folks year after year out there with their own vehicles to clean the trails up.
And this is a great example of how we leverage other funding sources, because this work that was done in the Missisquoi Valley Rail Trail that's now serving as an example for the Lamoille Valley was funded through a VOREC grant that we applied for at the Regional Planning Commission. We provided the match. And so we leveraged other funding sources to help support it, what is part of the transportation system. So we also do transportation work that supports Vermont's clean water goals. We talked a lot about one of those tools a little bit earlier with the road erosion inventories and with the culvert inventories. And I'm going to let Kyle talk a little bit more about our work there.
Sure. This past year, we contracted with several municipalities, completed 4 road erosion inventories, Isle La Motte, Swanton Village, Sheldon, and Fairfield. We have some interns that come out and spend hot, dusty days outside, really taking note of what that erosion looks like on the side of these roads. And they are roads or segments that are connected hydrologically to waterways of the state. We also, just as a tie back to the rail trail, we were contracted last year with AOT to do culvert inventories on our portion of the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail, which was particularly interesting because our interns got to crawl around and look at culverts that were built pre-railroad that still exist and have basically been untouched and are in perfect working condition. Because that just goes to show that investment made a difference at that time. So these are, at least the road erosion inventory, are made possible through Better Roads category grants that are state funded, that every year there's an amount of money that's available for municipalities, and those funding avenues, it's really important to get that work done. Towns are not required to ask us to help, but it gives them those extra bodies to help with some of those tasks while they're trying to do their regular highway work.
And the Rail Trail culvert inventory was a great example of partnership with VTrans, rather than VTrans having to make staff available and hire staff to go out and do these necessary inventory of the rail trail. They were able to work with the regional planning commissions to get it. So emergency preparedness and transportation are closely related. Christian touched on, and as you all know, road damage is one of the key costs of any sort of flooding or storm event in Vermont. So our work really does help with emergency preparedness by having these inventories that identify these undersized or failing culverts that towns can prioritize in their capital program to improve. The other thing that we do is every year we provide each one of our towns with an updated road atlas that includes all the E911 points. And we give them a full poster size map as well as a book each road has its own page. And that's used extensively by public works crews as well as like the Siskiyou Valley Rescue always gets an updated set every year. And they use that really to familiarize themselves with the region and make sure that they are able to respond in ways that they need to. And then municipal technical assistance. This is really something most appreciated by our towns and really crucial to getting Vermont achieving state goals. As you're familiar with, Vermont has a great habit of establishing a state goal and then expecting 250 municipalities to implement that. And so we are there to help our towns in their role, and Carol will talk about that.
Just highlighted a few of the very common requests that we get. Traffic counts, spot speed studies, often have to do with speed limit questions. But this is a service that we can provide through our regular technical assistance to a town. The traffic ordinance review and support, that's another one. We're often asked to be a second set of eyes. We've spent a little bit of time also the last couple of weeks with the town of Fairfield with looking at discontinuing a road and the complexity in that. And sounds scary, but it's a road that is, you don't know that it's a road. It just exists basically in statute only at this point. Some of the projects we've been able to do through this technical assistance, we've been able to incorporate into our state funding that we receive. And a really good example of that is intersection study at Vermont 207 and Bushy Road, which is near the location of a very recent District 8 garage, and in an area that's in the growth center, not only for the town, but for the region. It's growing in businesses.
The committee was there last.
Oh,
perfect.
So
you last year.
There's a lot going on there. And this opportunity through VTrans allowed us to hire a consultant to look at the geometry of this intersection, which has been an issue for years. And we're wrapping that study up and we'll be able to make some suggestions, not only to VTrans, but to the town at the local level to look at opportunities there for safer travel.
And then a key component of technical assistance is municipal project management. When towns get grants from VTrans to do these projects, the RPC often serves as the local project manager. We have a couple of bike and pedestrian planning projects that our pilot is working on right now in South Bureau and Sheldon. And then this is just a really cool project, so I had to put a picture up of it. This was a construction project that we managed, Pigeon Hill culvert replacement in Franklin. It went from a 5-foot old metal culvert, which was woefully undersized and getting sized on both ends. And now it has a new 8 by 13-foot box culvert. This required not only cooperation and permitting through the state of Vermont, but we had to go through Army Corps of Engineers permitting, and we managed that with the consultants on behalf of the town. It was a very complicated project, but the results are really quite amazing. Ooh, 2 questions.
Just curious how long that project took from start to finish.
I'm guessing without looking about 6 years, including 2 construction seasons, 1 prep and 1 construction.
I think, yeah, 2020 are some of the dates in those first files.
From idea to construction. And part of that was a delay with some Army Corps issues, so it's not always things we can control.
We're just getting, it's always surprising to see how long it takes us to get it, the permitting, the different review processes.
Representative Powell?
Yeah,
what caused the Army Corps of Engineer to be brought in on this project? And what would be the criteria on any particular project?
I don't know the criteria for any project, but this one I think is related to an adjacent wetland and some drainage and connections. That the wetland that was probably created by the undersized culvert being in place for way too long. Yeah. And then just we collaborate with everybody involved. And through that, we get great projects. We help further the transportation program. One of the things that I've done for the last 30 years has been part of public transit. And so it's been a pleasure to serve on both Green Mountain Transit Board as well as now the Rural Community Transportation Board. Now that we've shifted operators from Franklin and Grand Island County. Kyle's also served on that. You want to talk about L&D?
Yeah, and I serve as staff support for the Franklin Grand Isle Mobility Committee, and that's older and persons with disabilities transportation coordination, getting those funds to the appropriate places, getting those questions answered when funding needs to be saved and used strategically. But it's a really great opportunity to get people of all different age well, recovery folks, all of those folks that use some of that mobility money.
And so you don't have to brag about yourself. I'll say you represent Vermont on a national board as well through the National Association of Development Organizations. That really helps elevate local voices to the federal agencies.
And I'm learning a lot about what you had questioned before about how this regional works in other states. And it is every possible option that exists out there.
Congratulations to you, or thank you to you for that effort. You mentioned the transition within public transit. In what do you have any comment on what the community reaction, or users' reaction, or current kind of status of that transition from Green Mountain Transit to RCT?
I would say after many months of uncertainty and the stress that causes, the transition appears to have happened very smoothly, and things seem to be operating very well with the transition from the Rural Community Transportation Board side. I can't speak to GMT side anymore because we're not on that board, but I think that from a community perspective, the transition is a good one, and it comes at a good time when RCT is doing a new strategic plan for transit for their service areas. So I think there'll be some good opportunities there. We'll have to still make sure we maintain a connection to Chittenden County. We have, 10,000 commuters a day that travel between Franklin, Grand Isle, and Chittenden County. So it's an important connection that we make sure we maintain.
I'll hold my comments or question on the next piece.
And then just finally, even though we're not asked for new projects right now, just because of the very real resource constraints, we do still maintain kind of a just in case we have other opportunities that come up. And when you get this, you'll see them all here. But we do have our priorities that are in the capital program, as well as our priorities that aren't in the capital program yet. Right. We all
Those programs that are presently in V-Train's list of projects. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the one, and then the other one is the ones that aren't in there yet, but we know our needs and we're constantly looking for resources to address those needs. If V-Trans isn't the place to go.
Out of all those projects, what's the percentage of are they all municipality projects? There's no V-Tran, actual like highway or state highway.
There are some that intersect with those state highways, but for the most part, they all have at least some local.
Right, okay, so really, you're again relying on the state grant program to, I don't know, 90% of these would be satisfied will need to be satisfied.
Yes, and sometimes there's an opportunity for local funds. So there's an example that's not on this list because it's going to be taken care of, but on Route 36 in St. Albans Town and St. Albans Bay. There's a great cream shop there, if that's your thing. There's
They've been there too.
Oh, fantastic. So we did a road safety audit review of that intersection, and they came up with some pretty attainable, low-cost fixes that the town can actually take on, even though it's an intersection with the state highway. So I think, you know,
Well, it's
our,
now class 1 town highway.
now it's, oh yeah, now
Yeah,
it's,
so
but
they
before
can-
that,
yeah.
Which we put in the T-bill last year,
Yeah.
which is why we toured down there while we were out at the district garage.
but if that hadn't happened, this town still could have had some opportunities. And I think that we have to do more of that, of identifying some low-cost, no-cost, flexible fixes. You know, similar to the wastewater world, if your septic tank fails and you can't get it up to standards, you can do best fix.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think we're in an era where we need to really be thinking more often about
Get 80% there.
about making it better and not making it perfect.
That's,
Thank you very much. Was looking to see which intersection I was. Representative White?
Yeah, thank you. Two questions. We were talking about the road adoption by the town from V-Trans. How has that worked? And like with winter plowing and so forth, I think I remember that V-Trans was going to continue plowing that section of the road, even though you all took it over. I'm just curious how that's played out.
The class 1 town highway takeover at the Bay, as far as I know, everything is going really smoothly. There are some, the public took the opportunity to say, okay, so now the town is in charge. Now you need to listen to our concerns, especially local folks. I believe the town is applying for a couple of pretty substantial grants to do some intersection work there and look at, you know, what needs to change.
Like sidewalk types of.
Exactly, yeah, to best complete those connections and make it as safe as possible.
Okay, and is my memory correct that V-Trans was continuing to plow that section of the?
I think that
Yeah.
is correct, because it is such a short segment and it connects between two.
Exactly, yeah. And my second question, so it sounds like you have a good working relationships with V-Trans and you've got your projects on the list and you know what's gonna get on the list next if there's an opportunity. And are you working with your district manager at V-Trans, or kind of what part of V-Trans do you coordinate most directly with?
I work the most with policy and planning. So Matthew Orencio is our program manager, and he and I talk almost daily.
Okay,
So when there are those questions or needs for those connections, he's really there to help foster those. And we definitely work with the district as well.
Right.
As specifics come up.
Matthew Renzo was in here testifying earlier this year. I don't remember exactly what, but I know he's been here. But usually he's quietly on the side of tech meetings.
Yes. Yes.
You had mentioned the US Route 2 South Hero pedestrian activity. Is that in all the way up in the village or before that?
It's
3-lane piece? What are you looking at there?
So it's that area at the boat fishing access and Apple Island Resort.
Okay.
So
So
connections there.
in one of the early meetings that I attended, and I still keep this in the back of my mind as we work in the committee. In the exact same meeting, I don't know how you guys handle the amount of balance of wants and needs, but there are two routes that come to the highway for a huge amount of commuters. You mentioned 10,000 commuters leaving Franklin County to go and Grand Isle County to go to work in Chittenden County, 104, 105. And people would say they race to the interstate to get and to go. And then you have US 2 coming out of the Grand Isle to get to the highway to get to Chittenden County. And US Route 2 is this huge, wide, beautiful, open, you got to go right to come across left. You got right-hand turn lanes. It's just what some people would imagine to be an incredible road. So the people on Route 104 and 105 and up in Franklin County want their road to look like Route 2. And they want it wider and they want more room and they want right-hand turn lanes. And the very next group to talk about what they wanted was this Grand Isle people who said, you have to shrink this road. The work that you've done is terrible. It increases speed. It makes it unsafe. It's not safe for pedestrians. It's not safe for people. We need traffic calming and we need to take this road and turn it into something else. And the very same meeting, the group of people are saying, we want that road in our neighborhood. And I have had that kind of in the back of my mind of planning and every time we talk about projects. And I don't know how a transportation plan can work effectively when people, it's very hard for people to know what they need and what they want. And it's in the exact same meeting that they want to swap roads in effect. And both options are terrible depending on how you look at it. So I certainly struggle with the struggles you have on a regular basis. So.
And I think the new V-Trans multimodal design standards are really going to be key to finding that middle road and having that context sensitive plan for what roadway corridors should look like. And aligning that with our regional land use planning is going to be a really key point of future, I think.
Does the process for looking at speed limits in municipalities and state roads and how it interacts with you guys, does it work? Does it not work? Does it need to be reviewed? Does it need to consider a change in some kind of way? Does it matter where you sit, whether you think it works or doesn't work?
From my perspective, I think it works because I think that I think it's very difficult for somebody who's local, who's experiencing what they believe to be traffic that's moving too fast. It's very difficult for the average person to actually equate how fast a vehicle is traveling. So the traffic studies that we do, when we collect that speed data, it really puts some science behind what's actually happening. And it gives the opportunity for somebody to look at numbers versus feel. Now, feel is something that's measured in a different way. So having the opportunity to look at what those metrics look like and make your decision or make your next steps based on that, I think is really important and really helpful. So everybody says their cars are going 80 miles an hour. My family lives 6 feet off of that road. So they feel like the traffic is always going 80 miles an hour. And it's usually like 35.
I think where there could potentially be some shifting is a little more attention paid on the plan for the area that the road travels through, even if the geometry of the road might suggest a certain speed. Just a little more thinking about the village areas and the transitions and where there is potentially a mismatch between how the road is built and how the road is used and figuring out the best speed for those places. I think of particularly or like around Sheldon Elementary School on Route 105, where you've got 4 speed limit transitions in a few miles stretch. And maybe there's some combination of traffic calming and speed limit management that could help places like that.
And you had that on the study list. Is that in process or just done, or where was that?
So that's more looking at getting pedestrians and bikes from the school to the rail trail. So crossing and then continuing down a local street, not necessarily looking at those speeds in the area.
But it will help, I think, serve as an example for how you can manage.
Oh, it's a big wide open area that you can't, if you had kids to that, when you have kids in that area, so certainly, but it could look a whole lot different. It could be far more attractive and it could be far more safe, I suppose. And the rail trail is right there. So I'm glad to hear that that's on the list. I don't recall reading that one on the list or seeing that one.
And we see people taking traffic speed limit calming in their own hands, like, the folks who put mannequins out of their driveways and, they help.
I was just gonna say, that's certainly a theme of this, some on the committee anyways. I think it's this, balance of state roads, getting from one municipality to the other. But somehow, I think in front of my house, literally goes from 50 to 30, maybe in 200 yards. But first it goes to 40, then it goes to 30, but, that just doesn't work. So this, trying to find that balance to allow municipalities to have walkable, environment. And yet we've got traffic coming through that they're not necessarily at 7:30 in the morning interested in looking at the views.
balancing of the mobility and the function.
Challenge.
Is there anything else you'd like the committee to know about the work you do or any help that we might be able to give?
The only help is, I think, continuing what I thanked you for in the beginning, which is everything that we can do to make funding more accessible to our municipalities in the easiest way possible with the fewest hurdles along the way. We appreciate that.
I asked if we could just take some of the V-Trans cash put it in our pockets and just hand it out to our municipalities.
They'd be okay
Back on
with
this.
that. Yeah. Nice try.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us. We really appreciate it.
And we are